Hello there, I'm Amy from Astrology.com, and today I want to go over Keir Starmer. So I did get the election wrong, but we didn't have Keir Starmer's time of birth. Thankfully, this result made it much easier to rectify his chart. So I rectified his chart to, I believe, being about 1 o'clock, 1 minute past 1. So this gives him a Libra ascendant. So Jupiter aspects his ascendant, which can make him very successful. And there's also a aspect from Saturn, which can make him equally very serious. And then Ketu also aspects this point as well. So this probably contributes to his negative public view in a way, yet he has Venus in the first, which is going to make him charming and give him a good following. But this really sums up the reason why I think he's a bit of a Marmite man. So you either love him or you loathe him. So the ruler of the first and the 8th, it's in the first. So he's confident, successful, he has good energy. And this is a sign that he was actually born into wealth, even though he says that he wasn't. And there is a consumption with one's own belief, and there can be a bit of a closed mind here. The ego is very strong, so there can be a tendency towards arrogance at times, and he can climb to high success with this placement and have a great education. And there's also a lot of challenges as it rules the 8th, so this can bring an accident prone nature as well as turbulence in early life. Venus is very strong in his own sign, so there is a Mala via yoga, so it makes him graceful, likeable, as well as creative. And I do think that he actually played a lot of instruments in his youth as well, so this supports that. And this can make somebody who's very good at art as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if you're someone who was good at drawing or painting. Then Neptune is in the first as well, so this creates a lot of sensitivity, and he can be interested in mysteries of all sorts. And there's also a changeability and an obscurity about him as well, so he can adapt himself to be what you want him to be, a chameleon. Mercury is in the 12th house, and it's incredibly strong, and the moon is here as well. So there is a sensitivity that can result in anxieties and emotional upsets, and there's an introversion as well as an interest in history in the past. So there can be irrational fears being in the 12th, and it's another clue to having problems with his mother as well. And there can be problems with women in general, and well, if you can tell what a woman is, of course, perhaps that's the problem. There's a great interest in learning about the past as well as interest in charities. So, this can be an explanation as to why he was a lawyer for human rights as well as, he also did criminal defence. The 12th house is about crime, criminals, and so take that as you will. There's a lot of interest in foreign culture and travel. So then we've got the 9th and the 12th ruler in the 12th. His father would have had a difficult life, and there can be problems just relating to him in general. And I did hear in a recent interview that his father was really cold and lacked softness. And, also with this placement, there's an interest in foreign things, but there can be friction with teachers. His moon is in Hasta, which is about manual skill and arts. And as this is the hand nakshatra, he can grasp complex ideas quite easily, but there is a problem with get let go at the same time. The moon's so close to the fixed star Algarab, so there's links to great success, but eventual fall from favour. And I think all politicians do experience this kind of fluctuation anyway, so it's unsurprising. The 10th ruler is in the 12th. And there can be a lot of work behind the scenes, but also large institutions. What is the government? It's an institution. So steps up in his career can come from reorganisation and changes in power. And that did happen. Keir Starmer became the leader of the Labour Party after Jeremy Corbyn lost the election to Boris Johnson. And that's really interesting, as the 10th ruler is sitting with a very strong Mercury. His career was always going to be communications, business, writing, and travel. And then we've got the sun in its own sign. It's really strong, and this gives big dreams, materialistic desires. He's a hard worker, he makes a lot of money, and there can be multiple income streams as well. The 11th house is, of course, about the government, so it's very powerful for his leadership positions, and there can be associations with very, very powerful people. Uranus in the 11th shows me that his associates and his friends can be unreliable, and this is a potential that people could turn on him and change their alliance as well. Pluto in the 11th, you know, this makes people go into politics and makes them really interested in it, and there is an interest in human condition, and as a result there can be a desire to have control over things to improve in the manner that they believe it will work. So, you know, there's a good intention here, but, you know, it's a bit megalomaniacal, as it's sort of like, well, I know what's right and I'm going to make the change, which I do think does fit with his attitude. The sun is sandwiched between Pluto and Uranus. The sun is the ego, and, you know, having the planet of power and control exactly conjunct that is really, really intense. There's disrespect for authority, and he can spend a lot of time searching to find, you know, his group of people that he fits in with. Pluto and the sun, yeah, it really does concern me as a leader. It's very egocentric as a combination, and it can make him incredibly intense. You know, he's not lacking passion by any means, but maybe too much, and an obsession with power for the sake of it, you know, again, can make him very arrogant, but make him believe that he knows everything, as well as there being an explosive temper, and this is very manipulative. And one thing that Pluto does have an association with is nuclear, and I believe that he's going to spend a lot of money on nuclear weapons or nuclear power. But, you know, it's going to be one of those, if you knew what I knew because of the secret oath, you would want them as insurance against Russia as well. But, you know, cancer rates are increasing, but spending money on new hospitals, reviving the service, or new medical professionals as an insurance against the ever-falling life expectancy rates, that's, you know, that's not the kind of insurance he wants. So, but this hasn't been said, this hasn't come out, so I haven't heard him actually say he wants to invest in nuclear weapons yet, but this is the kind of situation that I wouldn't be surprised in seeing. So Saturn's in the 4th, and it owns the 4th and the 5th, and there can be a seriousness that could have been to do with a very unhappy childhood. There's coldness, detachment in the family, and I know his mum was very sick and it was really difficult, and this may be what it's alluding to here. But it's good for earning a degree, owning property and gaining respect, and he has done all of those things. And there is actually a lot of closeness to his mother regardless of the difficulty, because Saturn is sitting in its own house and it's happy. Ketu is in the 4th, and this gives a sense of loss in the home, and it can make his mother unstable. And she had Still's disease, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks the joints. So it's kind of like an arthritis. And yeah, so there's this feeling that the home is incomplete with Ketu here. But regardless of whether Saturn is strong, there is so much affliction that, you know, there's always a sense of not feeling like he belongs, or this lack of security or confusion, and endings to things can be really odd as well. So if anyone's going to have odd events in 10 Downing Street, pests, gas leaks, just weird things, is going to be him. And weird things, you know, tend to happen in the homes of people with this kind of placement. Jupiter's in the 5th, and it rules the 3rd and 6th houses, so he's creative, he's talented in writing, it's great for communications, creativity, but it's also the house of politics, so it's really helpful in his career, and probably why he was able to make such a quick succession. Jupiter being here gives a great intelligence, and there's also an interest in sports, and I know he really likes football, so this does give an open mind, but there is an arrogance to one's own belief. So it's sort of like an open mind, two things that he's kind of already receptive to. So he will grow his own ideas, but he won't listen much to the opposition. But there's great intelligence. But there's also, this is a good placement for advisory positions, gambling, taking chances, but there can be problems with his own children as Jupiter's too much energy here. The 6 is slightly afflicted. Sixth rulership does bring negativity to the house and brings a kind of affliction here. But it's also the house of work, and it's mixing with advisory skills as well, which is what he does in politics. And he also did that in law as well. So this could be the placement that contributes to his change into politics. Jupiter and the Sun are in mutual opposition, and this gives a lot of confidence, but also gives him luck. And this is great for achieving success, and people tend to trust his judgment. And as Jupiter is about the law, it makes him very passionate about legal things and justice. Jupiter aspects Mars, and this is such a political combination. It makes somebody adventurous, a risk taker, and it's a link to law. So he loves to pick a fight, he loves to be right, and that works with politics. It's good for success and ambition. It really makes a powerful, people stand up for what they believe in with this combination. They're not afraid to stand up and have an argument. Rahu's in the 10th, and this plays a part in him having a powerful career and climbing to the top very quickly. And, he can influence others, and he's highly ambitious. And this can really signify greed, as in nothing is ever enough, and he can climb and climb and climb and climb and climb. Look around and go, it's still not enough, even though he's right at the top. He just needs to gain more power, more success, and, I think this kind of links back to potentially his father as well. It's like the wanting to prove himself, and I know he said in an interview that his father didn't recognise his success, and a lot of this is to do with chasing for approval, but he was never going to find that completeness, because his father's now passed away, and he never got that. And the 10th house does have connotations with the father. Rahu makes things really quite extreme as well. But, yeah. Mars rules the 2nd and the 7th, and it goes into the 9th. So finances are linked to his father, as well as law, teaching, education in general. Speech is strong, and he would have received a great education. He's lucky as well. It's a great placement for marriage, and it makes his wife philosophical but potentially opinionated. I know that she she's vegetarian, and she is really into religion, so that lines up with Jupiter being there. He will love travel as well as education, religion, and there's success with foreigners as well. So he's going to be opinionated, and we know that. He's got a lot of passion, there's dogmatic attitude, but it's a great placement for technical fields as well as law. He loves to argue, and there can be disagreements with his father, with teachers, and I can imagine he was one of those students who was very successful but very, very opinionated. And with Mars being in this house, that shows technical ability to his father, and his father was a toolmaker, which matches up really nicely as well. But the malefic damages the relationship with his father, and there's an aspect to the 4th which tells me again that's more signs that his home life can be very problematic. Mars also aspects Mercury, so of course Mars is the planet that really heats things up. It can be argumentative, it really has the fighting mentality, and then Mercury is the way we communicate. So again, sharp mind, cutting, decisive, critical thinking, good with maths, but problems with being too critical, loves to argue. So let's address the elephant in the room. He did win the election, and I predicted that he wouldn't. So what did I miss? And this win actually helped me confirm his potential birth time, along with a load of other things. So his D10 had to be activated. So this led me to believe that his D10 was a Gemini ascendant with Jupiter sitting there as well. So, of course, the 10th ruler would have been in the first. So I think that when he goes into dashes of Jupiter, it gives him a great strength. And of course, he suddenly was made the leader of Labour in, I believe it was 2020, and he was in the subdasha of Jupiter at that time. So he's been incredibly powerful since 2020, if I've managed to guess his time right. And then on top of that, this whole period from 2022 when he went into the Mercury Dasha up until 2039 when he goes into Ketu is going to be incredibly powerful for him. But he probably won't be in power for that long. Even if you look at his chart in terms of leaderships, Leo's rich and powerful, and it's also about the monarchy. So he's going to give a lot of power to them, even though he says he's not a monarchy supporter. The rich are still going to have a lot of control over us. He'll give a lot of money out in the name of foreign contracts, aids and alliances, and we have already seen that, and I think we're not even 2 weeks in or 3 weeks in, and we've seen a lot of that already. I think the stock market's going to be great underneath him, but again, that's something for the rich, not for the common working person. But one thing that is interesting is the sign of government. Saturn sits here, so there could be a lot of government debt, and it could really impact the common people as well. Ketu's also here, so there could be fear-mongering, illusions, even a victim mentality. But Ketu's also a fiery planet, so there could even be fires as well. Saturn's quite dry, so if you add that to Ketu, it's dryness and heat, so that's really going to support problems with fire and combustion. Venus is in its own sign, so that's great for contracts as well as social freedoms and the happiness of the masses, so this is quite a good sign. But with Neptune here, there's a glamour but also association with instability, and I think there's going to be problems with inflation. There's also potentially a lot of duality here where there's freedoms for the rich and everybody else, it's kind of like tuck it away. But there can also be some confusing contracts as well as mass delusion as well. But I'd say there's going to be a lot of building houses and money invested in cities, which, funny old green agenda to just, concrete over the environment in the name of, I don't know. But anyways, the green agenda that they're pushing isn't anything to actually do with the environment or improving anything. So, I wouldn't be surprised if under the green agenda somebody goes, hey, let's cut down all the trees on the green belt and let's replace it with this magical oxygen machine. It's going to be great, so get rid of the trees because we don't need those anymore, and they're going to have this, create loads of jobs, and somebody's going to get loads of money out of it, and the investors are going to get money out of it, and it's going to be great. But that's how stupid and money orientated this world is now. So I think they're genuinely creating an environmental emergency in the name of environmental emergency. But there we go. But all in all, there's a lot of money going out, there's a lot of money going to services. I think that he's going to be putting a lot of money into the NHS and stuff like that. But because his sun is so strong, there's a sun sign that gold's going to be a high value, and that kind of tallies up with wealth inequality as well. But with Rahu in the sign of houses, there could be an increase in mortgages again as well. So I think that the government debt, it really has to be paid off by not only the government but also the people. It's going to affect the interest rates with all this spending. So yeah. But don't you think it's really funny that how the cost of things go up, it impacts the people at the bottom the most, and then the Bank of England increases the interest rate to stop the people at the bottom freely buying stuff in hope that it penalises the rich. Weird. Very weird. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my rant. I will see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.